since it doesn't look like anybody's waiting.
Okay,
So,
good.
We'll get started. Welcome to the Lone Tree Art Center's virtual Spark presentation, everyone. We're really thrilled to be here with you today. I'm Lee Chandler. I'm the marketing director here, and I moderate all of our virtual Spark programs. Before we really get going, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this program, Charles Schwab, Morningstar Senior Living, Belco, and the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District. While we don't have social time after the program today like we normally do, this is going to be interactive, so please participate if you feel comfortable. If you would rather not speak out loud, you can type your question or your comments in chat, or you can send a message to me. I'm the host, and I will speak what you have written out loud. And you are visible on the screen through your video. So if you don't want to be visible to everybody, please feel free to turn off your video. Oh. Now for the presentation. Okay, so today's program is going to be focused on photography, and our presenter today is Janine Madden, and she will introduce Steve Sorensen to us when we're ready to do that. Janine is one of our ushers here at the Art Center. She's been an usher with us for about 4 years, and during that time, she's gotten very involved with our community impact programming, such as sensory-friendly programming and our school ambassador program. And she's been involved with Spark from very early on, and she's often a presenter for our Spark program, so she's probably a familiar face to you. She's particularly interested in the artwork that's on our walls, and that's why she's here today. So please welcome Janine Madden.
Hi, everyone. So welcome. I'm so thrilled that so many of you have joined us today for our third virtual via Zoom Spark presentation. Maureen's there, give a wave. She did our first one. She did the groundbreaking trip to Vietnam. That was extraordinary. And the good news is she is going to be taking us on some more travels. We'll talk about that later. So today we have a really, really special visual arts program for you with an awesome guest. But, and as Lee mentioned, we are going to be recording your video, although you're on video, won't be included in the recording, just so you know. We are joined today by award-winning photographer and former Spark presenter and Lone Tree Art Center exhibitor, Steve Sorensen. Steve, give a wave to everyone.
Where's Steve?
There he is. Do you see him? Everybody's configuration might be a little bit different. So if you want to see everybody, you can switch to gallery view. And then that way you can see everyone, and you can, there should be a little arrow at the bottom that you can kind of see everybody there. Or you can do speaker view, whichever you prefer. Before COVID happened, Steve and I had a chance to plan a really, really great program on the Commissioner's Choice show. Was it Joellen Dusenberry? It was a fantastic show. And so Steve and I got together and we went through some of his photographs, and we put together a really wonderful presentation that we never got to show. The Art Center closed, the work came down. So I was just super, super pleased that he was available to do this presentation for us today. For the shows at the Lone Tree Art Center, the curators and jurors and folks that come, the jurors basically who come, always comment on the same aspect of photo selection. They always say it's just so difficult to choose the winners. And I was faced with the very, very same dilemma while I was selecting the photos for us to view and discuss today. Each of them from his website spoke to me in a very, very different way. And I hope that you find a similar connection as we go through each one today. We're not going through every single one on his website. That would be too cool, but not enough time. So I've picked 1, 2, 3, 4 images. And if we have time, a fifth that I just couldn't pass up. So as we look at each image, we are going to go through the following steps. And I've mentioned before, and I have a little caveat now, but I've mentioned before that when you are looking at art in general, whatever it might be, but particularly pieces that are unfamiliar to you, or an artist that you've never seen before, or a piece of work that you've never seen before, We tend to gravitate toward the label or the title. And I've always said that it's best not to look at that at first. However, I have been doing some more work with an art museum in Torrance, California, where we moved from. And in speaking with the curator there, and it will apply to some of what we look at today, knowing a little bit about the piece, whether we know where it's been taken or when, or some detail about it, even the title, really does influence and change the way we feel about it. And we'll go through an image today that's going to, we're definitely going to see evidence of that. So we are going to spend a good 30 to 60 seconds looking at it, which I have to say just seems interminably long. I'm like, I did 60-second timing on my clock and thought, this is a really long time, but it isn't. And so we will observe before we begin discussing each of the images. And then next, we'll describe what we see. So that will be the portion of this program where you get to interact and unmute yourselves, and just we'll talk as much about what we see right there in the photo without any knowing anything about it. And then we'll go ahead and interpret and discuss what we see a little bit more. And that's where Steve will jump in, and he will answer our questions and tell us exactly what we're looking at. I always like to figure out, and again, I'm going to flip where Steve comes in on some of these, because I always like to find out how a photograph or a piece of artwork or painting makes us feel, the emotions that it stirs within us, and whether or not we've had a similar feeling before, or if we've been to similar places that are being depicted in the photographs that we're looking at. So with that, we are going to go ahead and get started looking at our first image, and I'll put it on the screen, and then I promise I will not say anything for 30 seconds so that you can take it all in. I've talked about before, some people just look right at it and whatever it is pops into their mind and they focus on it. Other people scan. However you do it today, we are going to go ahead and spend a full 30 seconds doing so. Here we go.
Does look like a stadium.
Yeah,
Stadium. It's above there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But this looks like water down here. I think it's the side of a building or boat that's in the water or next to the water. See that bricks?
Yeah, but money.
So yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll kind of jump right in there. So I've done a little something interesting with this photograph, and you'll see what that is in a minute or so. But let's talk about what you're seeing. And if you're muted and you'd like to participate, please unmute yourselves. And then that way we can hear what you're saying. And don't worry about talking over other folks. People are pretty good about the way they step into this discussion. But what's the major, what jumps out at you when you're looking at it, that major element?
Boat.
The boat. What do you notice about it?
No one's on it.
No one's on it. Okay.
Orange.
Orange.
That's the first thing that hit me. It's really weird, but when I looked at it, I thought, is this a TV station? I thought, and then I looked closer and I thought, no, there's water and there's brick and it's wild. I love it.
Fantastic. Anything, so are we thinking that there's a reflection maybe going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and that reflective piece is coming from what you're saying you're thinking is water?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of lines, like what directionality of line do you see in this portion of the work? In which direction are the lines primarily going?
Right to
Yeah.
left.
Good. So horizontal, right? So there's a lot of horizontal. Our eye is being drawn to that
Mhm.
top portion. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
So this top, so there's a horizontal, there's all of this horizontal line work here, right? And then we see it again in the reflection. So I'm going to move. I typically like to spend a lot more time on an image, but there's a little trick I did with this image. So I'm going to move to the next one. Anything else anybody wants to add before we do? Okay. So this image, it's a little more abstract.
That looks like when you're in the
Under the pier.
yeah, and then
You see there.
I can't talk.
That's okay, Donna. You are on the right track there. So where
I'm
thinking?
I'm in the
water?
under and phone. No, I can't tell you. I
Don't
blew.
worry. Let's look at it pretty objectively, right? So let's look at what colors do you see?
Right.
There's some brown,
Yeah.
some white,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What about up here?
Post.
Blue.
greenish.
This, Janine, I noticed that turquoise blue was in the other one. This almost seems like it's a reflection of, or an extension of the picture you had before.
Yeah.
All right then. Well, you're exactly right.
Oh,
So this is the actual photograph
Oh.
in its entirety. And when I selected the photograph for us to discuss today, I recognized that there was the reality portion up top, right? And it's actually really not, it is up top. I mean, it's in the top third. If you look at this picture, photograph, it's in the top third, right? And then you have that
That's up
center
there.
portion, and the rest of it is all a reflection. And a reflection of a reflection almost. It was just, I loved the abstract nature of the bottom portion of this. So looking at it all together in its reality or its entirety, when could this have been taken? What kind of day or where? What do you think about it?
Well, to me, I'm in the and the underground.
Okay.
Okay. In a
submarine.
no, no. I'm going somewhere in a
Ferry.
yeah or what's the other thing?
Canoe or
No.
What do you think?
So not in the boat.
Not in the boat.
Not in the boat. Okay, but you have a sense of traveling somewhere when you are looking at this. You feel that movement, yes?
Yes. It's the when I lived in New York, I went under when you go somewhere.
she rode the ferry every day to go from the island that she lived on over to the Manhattan area.
I see. So that water
Yeah.
reflection is causing you to think back to that, right? I'm gonna drag Steve in now. So he can kind of tell us a little bit about what he was trying to convey, and let him tell us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Steve before I turn it over to him. As I mentioned, Steve Sorensen is joining us today to discuss his images. His passion is travel, photography, and sharing his experiences with his viewers, whether it be the photograph itself or the story behind it. Every image has its own story. The joy in seeking, seeing, and capturing the beauty of our world at first makes him speechless and then turns him into a storyteller. And I will say he has an incredible Instagram feed where he not only puts up his work, but is extraordinarily eloquent in the way that he describes the images and the circumstances surrounding them. So hi, Steve, welcome.
Hey,
So
Janine,
glad
thanks.
you're here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to see everyone. I did this, what is it now, 2 years ago, roughly, with
Yeah.
this program, and we had such a great time. And the participation was so fun, and people really got into the process. And for that, I greatly appreciate it. And I'm happy to have you here today. And I'm really happy to share my world with you. And I guess I could say almost literally my world or our world, because as Janine said, I'm a big traveler. My wife and I go around the world quite a bit. And that's one of our things that we love to do. And thank you for walking through this image as well. It's one of my favorites, and the reason being it's so different for me. And the reason being is if you can look at the image, I've almost flipped the image in a way upside down. The boat is right side up, of course, but I usually have the reflection of the water, in this case, at the top or somewhere in the middle. And in this case, I was able to snag it just from getting very low across a canal in Amsterdam in the Netherlands and take this photograph. And so let me describe a little bit of it. So if you can see at the top of the boat, that's actually the street level of Amsterdam. So the buildings and the cars or whatnot are parked just above that. And then of course you see the reflections of the building. And then I'm kind of lying down on the other side of the canal because there are handrails and such that would normally prevent me from getting a good image. So I have to get really low on the ground. Plus to do that and capture the reflection, that's how it all came together. So the trick with the image is my wife and I are really early risers. The Amsterdammers are not. So you can see how calm the water is. Normally the water would be very disruptive and there would be no possible way to have this reflection like this. So this is very early in the morning and taken at a time where the city is very quiet. And that means a couple of things. One is that not only is there a specific stillness and sort of a sanctity of the city itself, but then it offers up these types of images for me. So I'm very, very happy to capture this one. The one thing, and I look at this from a perspective of forsaking the familiar to capture something anew. So I'll repeat it, forsaking the familiar to capture something new. And it's essentially, it's how we look at any type of image, and art is around us everywhere. We're surrounded with art. But I enjoy the colors. There's as you can tell, not only just the color, but a certain magical charm about the canal and how quiet and still things are. Is there any questions beyond what I've just described? And can you, I don't know if any of the folks on the call have been to Amsterdam, but this might make it more familiar to you at this point.
I want to make sure that, so right now, I just want to double check and make sure everybody is just seeing Steve's image, correct?
No.
No,
Are you seeing my participant view? Like when you look at your screen, are you just seeing Steve's image or are you seeing also my participant view?
Yes.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
seeing my participant view. Okay, because I'm frantically trying my best to get it out of there. And I'm unable to do that. So I'm going to keep trying. That's what happens when I start fooling around while we're doing this. But all right, so I'm going to keep going and see if I can get rid
Janine?
of that. Yes,
Janine, I have a quick question. Steve,
please.
how did you find that? Obviously, you were looking, you scoped things out because then you went early, or did you just go early and you just happened across this?
You know, I think it's a great question. And I get very deliberate about my exploration. And so I'm on the hunt to find what I consider to be first most interesting. Whether I can turn it into a picture is yet to be witnessed or yet to be seen. So my job, my loving job, lovingly going out and seeking out images such as this. So it's really kind of
Let's see how they work.
I'm on the prowl. And so this one just, and as I mentioned, I love colors. And when something is so still as this, it just accentuates the color and really creates an interesting pattern. So I'm naturally attracted to it.
Oh,
Mhm.
upside down. And there's another.
Yeah, I'm going to move it back up because I was able to figure out how to get rid of that. So now you're just seeing the image, correct?
Yes.
Oh,
All right,
Cool.
great. So,
Does that answer the question? I want to make sure I covered that.
I think
Are
so.
you muted?
Yep, I think we're good. So we are going to go ahead and move on to the next image.
Ooh,
Take a minute to take a look at that.
love my railroad tracks.
That's right, Candy.
Oh my God.
So what's the predominant feature in this photograph?
Tracks.
Mhm.
Where could it be?
Looks like it's the tracks in some kind of a prison.
yeah.
Interesting. What makes you think that?
I don't know. I'm just looking at the
Mhm.
people, the little groups of people on either side, and they like seem to be very organized in little groups there.
The fence on the right side looks like a prison fence.
Yes,
Herb lawyer.
the
Like,
prison or military or yeah.
Guard towers too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never see very towers.
Okay. Perfect. So if you look at the almost exact center, right around here, the almost exact center, if we were to put this in fourths, do you see, what do you notice back here? Way back.
Maybe an engine.
Yeah, could very well be.
I thought it was a control tower of some sort.
Okay. I'm going to switch to a different view.
Oh,
So we're seeing a little more of the track. So what's different now? What's been added?
Flowers.
Flowers?
Some kind of grave.
Okay. A grave?
I'm wondering, this almost looks in my mind's eye like coming into a concentration camp.
That's what
That's what I thought from the beginning.
Mm.
Is this a
Right.
memorial?
Yes, memorial.
Like a memorial. So I took
Yes.
a very close picture of that,
Hmm.
the flowers in the front.
Yep.
So kind of, does it change your perspective? Keeps the same?
Wire figures there.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a memorial site, definitely.
Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and let Steve tell us a little bit more about the elements and the images and where this,
The wire figures.
And the wire figures, right?
Sort of.
Do you want to do the whole picture, Janine, or just this?
Yes, so sorry. Yes.
That's all right.
Thank you.
No worries.
Do you want this one or this one?
Let's stay with this one, maybe. You know, well, you know what? Go back if you would to the. There we go, because I think it has a little more detail in the.
Sure.
So
I see it there.
I am so impressed that you folks are so. Your observation is so right on, and this is a image of the Auschwitz death camp or camp in Poland, just outside. It's about 60 or about 40 miles outside of Krakow, Poland, in the southern part of Poland. And you're probably familiar with its history. It is a memorial, and it's what I would consider hallowed ground. But again, back to the idea that it's very impressive that you should pick this out, because that is exactly what it is. The black and white image itself really sets the mood of that. It is somewhat of a, I don't know, a dark area wouldn't be the right word, but essentially it is, like I said, it's hallowed ground and it should be respected. It's a UNESCO history site, so it's protected, and it's a place where you can go and really understand and be on the ground, if you will, of that period in our history, in the world's history. It is a memorial. There were probably somewhere between over 1 million and 1.5 million people that did not leave this camp. And it's quite poignant. And so I commend you for picking this out and seeing the guard towers and really understanding what this is. So that's a great job on your observation here. So I commend you for that. What kind of questions do you have on this image, or even the place, if you should have questions?
Was that a crematorium at the end of the track?
No, sir, that is actually where, and you said it earlier, I believe, somewhat of a control tower. That is one of the central features of where people were brought in on the train. So they came under that sort of guard tower, the main train area. So it's a very large building. Obviously, it's diminished due to the scope of the image itself, but it's quite large. The one thing that there are actually 3 camps that comprise Auschwitz, and what just amazed me was the size of this complex. It was unbelievable to see how large it is. What kind of questions?
It's not exactly a question, but looking at those tracks and just seeing how one set veers off, it's almost like that poem by Robert Frost, or, two roads diverged in a wood, and just thinking about these people that could only go the straight, they could never go to the other side. I don't know, just came to me.
No, I think that's terrific. And you're right. There was certain areas where they would unload the cars containing people. And some of those platforms is exactly where they would unload and have their sorting, if you will, of who could work and who would not, or who they would deem worthy of living or not worthy of living. And that's where a lot of that took place.
It's the kind of a picture that says that has 1 million words to it.
Mm-hmm.
One little picture has 1 million words in it. It's just a really terrific image to display all of the Auschwitz situation.
You couldn't have said it better. That is exactly right. There's so much. It's poignant. It's sometimes it's hard to talk about, but there's a.
I'm going to go to this photograph because it helps us segue into the next one. But what I was saying earlier when we first got on the call was this idea that if you did not know where this photograph had been taken and saw it just as tracks without really standing in front of it for a long enough time to begin to notice all of the smaller details on the side, do you feel that you'd respond to it differently? So knowing the title and knowing the location, do you feel that that makes a difference then in how you react to the work?
Well, seeing this, my immediate reaction would be that must have been a couple that was hit by a train right there, not the grand picture of where we're at.
Sure. So again, definitely that sort of memorialization with the laying of flowers. It really did speak to me, and this is the one that I originally looked at, and then Steve was able to provide the other two, and then this was just a closer screenshot of this piece here. But moving from, again, difficult to segue here, but moving from this depiction of flowers in a memorial kind of sense, we're going to move to another image that for many, many different reasons, and I'm hoping that you pick up on some of them as well. Really, I just enjoyed it. It would be a piece that I would easily hang wherever I was living. It's just a wonderful piece.
Pretty. Mhm.
So just letting your eye wander over it. There were lots of little details that I missed the first time I saw this piece. So like Steve's bio, we talked about in Steve's bio, the idea that images like this can conjure the desire to do storytelling. In some of our previous Spark sessions, we've done some storytelling, but I felt this image would be great to kind of make up a story to go with it. And what's the story behind this image?
I like to know.
Yeah, so first of all, what do we see? What are we looking at here?
Flowers.
Flowers. Strong color. Yeah, flowers. What are they wrapped in?
Paper.
Mhm.
Grocery store paper.
Yeah, grocery store paper. It looks very much like that, right?
Mhm.
And
Which
what
is-
are they housed? Where are they being displayed?
A
In
little-
boarded up
little
window.
niche.
I'm so sorry, Sandy, go ahead.
In a little niche in a wall.
Yeah.
And
What's it made out of?
it looks like maybe the bottom of a box that was maybe tucked in, a wooden box was tucked into the wall.
Okay.
And
What's the wall made out of?
flowers
Some kind of
and grass
cement block or rock.
and that, yeah.
Yeah.
blocks.
What about the colors? So we'll do a little color theory here. What about the colors of the flowers?
Oh, they're just
Bluish.
Blue violet.
blue.
Yeah. That blue violet. What about the color of the paper?
Brown?
Gold,
Orange.
orange.
Yeah, orange and blue. They are complementary colors on the color wheel. And so I think that's probably what drew me to this piece is I do love that use of complementary colors, particularly in a piece like this where it just happens naturally, right? There was no arranging to be done. It just happened like this. And Steve was able to catch the image. Who might have left the flowers?
Good question.
It almost looks like that blue thing right in the middle, like there could be a card or some note of some type.
A little love note,
Ribbon.
maybe.
Mhm.
I don't.
Yeah.
But there's also
Yeah, blue
something,
thing.
it looks like silver or something just up and to the right. Yeah, that,
Black.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And
After-
then this, the edge here makes me think maybe there's more.
Mm.
Yeah.
I loved the little raffia here. I loved the green, the vibrancy of the green
Yeah.
against, you know, even though these are in the purple blue family, when you look at this portion of the photograph, it almost appears white.
Mhm.
So there's just this lovely sort of light, dark, the light that's on the front of this paper versus the darker portions of the paper in the background here.
Mhm.
I just love the picture.
After being in Israel and in Jerusalem and seeing the Western Wall and seeing people put their prayers inside the little space between the rocks, this looks like if we got to see more of this wall, it might be just purposely putting little niches in here where people can put memorials for loved ones that might have died. This might still be in with the Auschwitz
Yeah.
kind of series. And maybe there were two people, maybe a mom and a dad or something that died. And so we got two separate bunches of flowers there for the memorial of these people.
Yeah, absolutely.
looks like a
Absolutely.
trellis on the left there, maybe.
Here,
Yeah, that,
yeah,
thought
I can see a
Romeo
little,
just left the flowers for Juliet.
there you go. That's the romantic version I was thinking, right? The Juliet flowers, because it made me think about flowers, right? And how we feel. How do you feel when you receive flowers?
Good. Great.
Yeah, yeah, particularly if
I
they're the
can't
kind
say
we
I've
really
ever
like.
received it.
Yes, they're always a nice gift. It reminds me of a scene from Under the Tuscan Sun, where she
Right.
kept leaving flowers to begin a friendship with a grumpy old person that lived behind the Exactly.
And there's such a difference between potted flowers, right, that seem to have a perpetual nature to them, as long as we take care of them, and cut flowers. But yes, again, when you look at this, what feelings does it stir? What emotions do you feel when you see this image?
Well, thinking on the romantic side, I felt, you know, a happy joy.
Yes.
But on the other side with the memorial, it's more of a sad.
Yeah.
Sure. And flowers kind of evoke that, right? My mom, who's on the call, although she's hidden herself, has been very specific with me about what kind of flowers, but more so what kind of flowers she does not want to be remembered by. And so I have to keep that in my brain all the time.
Right, right.
But so we're gonna go to Steve then, and he will be able to lift our spirits with where this image was taken and tell us a little bit more about it.
It's so much fun for me to sit and listen to people talk about the picture, and I get such an interesting perspective of, I'll take the picture and I'll think, okay, I kind of like this is interesting. And then, but to hear other people describe it, I think, wow, that's really interesting. and not necessarily just my picture, but just to hear people talk about their own perspective, which is so valuable to me. I will tell you a little bit about it because it's kind of a fun story, but this came from a town in England, and I don't know if you're familiar with Bath, England, B-A-T-H, Bath, England.
Oh, yeah.
Made famous by the Romans back in the day when they discovered the thermal baths and then rediscovered by Queen Victoria, 1800s, and people started flocking to Bath to take the waters, what have you. The interesting part, and I love the idea about the brick as well. The whole town basically is built of this brick, and it's very germane to Bath specifically. Matter of fact, it's called Bath Stone. And the city itself is comprised almost 100% of this type of architecture. It's a beautiful town. The irony, the funny part about perhaps the pictures, I walked by this and got a little bit further down the street and stopped and said, wait a minute, I just passed up a picture and had to walk back for it. And I thought, it's flowers and it's in a box. But I thought, no, I want to take an image of it. I kept looking and working on it, and I kept thinking, I do like this. And there's, I love the old box because it gives it sort of that old world idea, the old world charm idea. And of course it's wrapped, and as Janine pointed out, that I didn't even think about it, on the color wheel, and you're exactly right. It's got those elementary colors that really give it a nice contrast. The flowers themselves are, of course, awaiting someone. It's in a flower shop, and it's outside of the flower shop, but they're waiting to be delivered to what everyone suggested about. It could be a memorial or a romantic notion or a celebratory something, but they typically have a very special meaning, and certainly will for the recipient when they receive these. So if we could take the story perhaps even a little bit further, is think maybe in the latter part of the day that these will be missing, and somebody will be enjoying them on their dining room table or what have you, and having that scent waft through their house, and how nice that will be. So what a nice little presentation for someone to share this with.
Steve, I worked with Spanish-speaking students for many years and studied the culture. And when I was doing Dia de los Muertos, talking about the Aztecs, and their color for the dead is orange. It's not black. We added the black to it. But having the orange there, just evokes that it was a memorial. And since this is Europe, probably not. But, that's another feeling I get for it.
Sure. Yeah. It's when we take our experiences, and I think my whole philosophy, I believe, is we become who we are by our experiences. And, we want to make sure those experiences are the right experiences, the best for us. But when you come into a conversation with the knowledge that you have of the Incas and Aztecs and the Mesoamerican people, they're such a rich culture. And so you bring an extra level of detail to the conversation. And I think that's just fascinating. And of course, you get a group of people that have common experiences or shared experiences, and it's really interesting, just like we're doing, what you come up with on your thoughts around the image. I love it. I think this is a blast.
Well, that was the idea. So fantastic. All right. Well, we are doing well with time. We have about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to try and sneak in 2 more images, if everybody's cool with that. This next image, again, you'll as soon as you'll see it, you'll know, because I tend to default to color. And color, interestingly enough, really, really vibrant color or black and white. So this next piece, this next image,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. That big.
so definitely spend a little bit of time looking around this piece. Steve and I didn't have a chance to switch it out without his signature on it, but I'm happy that it's there, so you'll always recognize his work. But spend a few minutes, particularly in the left-hand side.
Bunch of balconies.
Good.
Mhm.
What is it?
So just like that first piece where we had a lot of that horizontal line, what kind of line work are you noticing in
Vertical.
this? Yeah, there's a lot of verticality in here, right? All of these vertical lines that are bisect kind of by what?
What is that?
Horizontal.
Looks like a
Horizontal lines,
ship,
doesn't
looks
it?
like
It
the
has a
outside
very
of a
nautical
ship.
feel.
nautical, yes.
Yeah, it's very curvy. I loved it. It's like super sexy, curvy image for me. I loved it. Loved the color. Loved everything about it. I loved this little yellow bit. Interestingly enough, I tend to gravitate more toward those warm colors, so red, orange, yellow. But this had so much soothing, cool colors in it, right? So the blues and the greens, and that's really almost like a cyan almost. And then a different kind of green down here. And then I spent a little more time looking at it, and I think someone mentioned, what were you saying over here?
The balcony.
Balconies.
Which kind of gives us a little bit more of an idea about what this could be.
I still think it looks like a cruise ship.
There you go. Okay. A cruise ship.
This reminds me of something I might have seen in Barcelona with the Gaudi kind of bony looking things that he uses in his construction. But it looks like an apartment house to me.
Okay. What do we think this is?
Wait.
What could this portion be?
Go ahead and talk.
Some kind of sculpture.
Okay.
So maybe we're in a courtyard looking through the sculpture at the apartment building.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else that you want to contribute before Steve breaks open the piñata and tells us what this is all about?
The big
I thought it
reveal.
was a
Big
space
reveal,
station.
exactly.
Have some people down here in the lower left going in. Looks like.
Actually, down here. So actually, because so because I snagged this from his Instagram, this is like a little person that is, that's like a little piece of the Instagram, but I think that could be people or it could be trees. The scale is really hard. Like I was able to note that this is a plant in a planter.
Chairs.
Chairs, right, chairs. Is this a building, if we do decide this is a residential or office building, is it a building you'd like to live in?
Very modern.
Oh,
Yeah, I have lost my zeal for anything more than like a couple of stories.
yeah.
Exactly.
Like a nice ranch would be great.
Yep.
Yes.
Like that. We have.
All right, Steve, could you shed a little light on this piece for us, please?
I would love to. And I heard someone, I think earlier, mention that they had lived in the New York City area, which that might be a big clue to where I took this picture. This actually comes from Manhattan, in an area that's very close to what they call Hudson Yards,
Oh.
if you're familiar with that. And I love this part of town. And they took an elevated rail line that was obsolete and converted it into a park. So you have a rail line that's about, I don't know, 50 yards off the ground that runs about a mile and little over a mile and a half around part of this area of Manhattan. Along that is, if you could, it gives me, and what it did for me in this image, it gives me an vantage point that I wouldn't have normally from the ground level. So if you can imagine, I'm on a platform that's probably 50, 60 feet off of the ground, looking at this, and I love the cruise ship idea, but looking at this, it's an apartment building. It was designed by a lady by the name of Zara Hadid, who is just an exceptional architect. And I heard Gaudi, and it's very much in that innovative, really off the chart architecture language, if you will. It's a really different look, and it would be so unique. So when I saw this originally coming down the High Line elevated train track, I stopped in my tracks. No pun intended.
No
really.
pun intended.
But the whole building, if you can imagine, has this curvilinear effect to it. So you see the spandrels, you see the vertical and the horizontals, and the whole thing is almost like a wave. So that's what I love, the cruise ship. Whoever said cruise ship, I thought, wow, that's really good, because it has that curvilinear, almost a wave to it as the building wraps around almost itself and sits in the block. And I also heard sculpture. It's like a sculpted piece, and it really is. I'm not sure I could have done a better job from trying to describe this in those three things: ship, Gaudi, and sculpture, because it's a very large apartment building that's very much like a sculpted edifice. It's beautiful. It's actually a very beautiful building, and it takes a lot of money to live here. So if whether you want to go up or down, it's very, very expensive. It's very exclusive. And I really enjoyed it. And I love the area. And I do a lot of architectural photography as well. If you ever happened onto my website, you would find I spend a lot of time on architecture, and I go with the lines. I love the lines and call it geometry. Maybe I have this thing for geometry, but there's so much geometrical activity going here that it really intrigued me. Do you have any questions about the building itself, or where I took this picture, or New York, or?
What are those beams made out of, you know?
That's stainless steel.
Stainless steel.
How many
once
stories?
you said where you took it, Steve, my husband and I were on that a couple of years ago on the, I've been in New York all my life, so that whole part was so new to me, and I knew this whole look looked really familiar.
That's great.
Just wonderful.
Isn't that a fun area down in?
Yes.
That area, I absolutely love it, and
it was wonderful.
The railroad used to be, gardens in there and everything.
Excellent. Excellent.
Great. Well, Lee just put, I don't know how comfortable you are moving into the chat feature, but Lee just put Steve's website up in chat. And from his website, you can also get to his Instagram if you have an Instagram account. And even if you don't, I think you can look at it anyway. His images are just stunning. We actually have 5 minutes, and I would love to show you this very last piece. When we were going through, so it's funny, when Steve and I first got together to discuss the images that we were going to talk about today, he asked me to go on his website, and I went ahead and chose the images and sent them to him and said, these are what I like to use, and got my PowerPoint all done. And then he sent me more, which made it really hard for me to decide. So luckily I threw this last image in. It's very busy, but it's extraordinary. And so,
Oh,
yeah,
Bicycles, boats. Yeah.
beautiful.
just a lot, but in a very organized way.
Yeah, that's great.
You back in Amsterdam?
Yes, sir. Good catch, Harry. That was very good.
Yeah, I loved from a composition perspective, the idea that the background, middle ground, foreground
yeah.
was really very, very evident. You know, like even the background where you look at the bikes, but then you look behind them and see those buildings. And I'm from Boston, and I was telling Steve, who has done a lot of photography in Boston, it reminded me, which Boston is a very sort of European-esque kind of town in a colonial way, if that's sort of a thing. I just made it up. But the idea that it's, you know, that the brownstones and things all have this very repetitive look, and the water and the boats and bikes, and for me, and bridges, and for me it was just very evocative of home. And I knew that Steve takes a lot of Boston pictures too, so, and like a lot of crew pictures and that sort of thing, so that's what drew me to it. But what does your eye go to?
The color.
My eye keeps moving around because there's just so much beauty to see in this picture. So maybe the boats first, and then the bikes, and then down to the water, and then back up to the buildings.
Bridge across.
And
Yeah,
even
the underside.
the underside of the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah. And what struck me was that from, if you're looking at the underside of the bridge right here, the like exactness of like where in the picture this is, where in the photograph this is, where you see the metal work, it was just fantastic.
Fabulous.
And again, from a composition or elemental perspective, when you draw a line right across the bottom of this, kind of like what we did with the first image, look at the extensive back reflection of the background behind the bikes. So you're mostly getting buildings and trees down here.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. And again, you get that same sort of, if I were to cut the bottom, I know you can't see my hands. If we were to cut the bottom, this would be a very abstract portion of the work, whereas this is very, you know, the realism. And I think that's one of the things I love most about reflective photography. Earth Reflected is the name of Steve's business and website. And that idea that that one single image can contain both abstract and realism, to me, is just fascinating. I love that.
If I can say a couple of things on, and if just actually one thing is the, to me, this represents the most indicative modes of transportation in Amsterdam with the bikes and the boats, and that had some appeal. But the reflection, you know, when you get calm water like this, it's just, I get giddy. I think, oh my gosh, what can I catch today that has that element of just enhancing the color, first of all, but then have that element of, I don't know, complexity, but just makes it a little more unique.
And I would think too, like the weather conditions, meaning on a very still, non-windy day, that reflection is going to look a lot different than on a day where it's a little bit, maybe much more windy or a little choppy.
Yeah,
that would distort, you know, that would distort the reflected image.
Yeah. And get up early.
I know. Well, we have spent the last several weeks on water. Right now, I'm looking out at a bayou that has a bit of a current going through it. And we kind of went through, when we were down in Cocoa Beach, we sort of went through those iterations of when we first got there, and Eta or Theta or Iota was out at sea. The ocean was just tumultuous. It was just wave after wave after wave. And then by the time we left, the water was just still. The ocean water, which is rare, really almost still. There was hardly any white water, and it was just still until the waves crashed at the actual shoreline, as opposed to prior, when it was just rows and rows and rows of crashing waves, 100 feet out. It was amazing. Water is a sweet medium to photograph.
Absolutely.
We know you love it. So I'm going to go ahead and do the last slide so that you can see Steve's email address.
Got it.
But
He is reflective.
and like I said, he has a fantastic website, and then many of those images are also on Instagram.
Oh,
The email that you got, I think, letting you know about this also had Steve's link in it. So if you want to reach
Okay.
out and ask him any questions, or come through us, we can do that. They're really just very thought-provoking, and they capture scenes from all aspects of our lives and the world around us. I tend to choose a lot of landscapey kind of things, but he has if you are an animal fan, particularly wild animals, zebras and African animals, and also exquisite, extraordinarily unreal whale shots that are just crazy good.
Okay.
That's good.
So good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
And go ahead, Steve, please.
one sec, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. And it's so much fun
Thank
to
you.
hear from you and your input and your observations and just the things that you pick up that I don't, which is so much fun. So I just thank you for your input, your time, your thoughts, your considerations, and thank you for that. And I hope we can do it again in the future. And I'd love to hear from you if you're so inclined, and I'll leave it up to Janine to either direct that or however you want to go about it. But I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a very, very safe and healthy, happy holiday next week.
Oh, yeah.
Thank
So
you.
wishing you the best.
You too. I got your
Thank you,
applause,
Steve.
Carrie and Barb. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank
We
you.
do. Lee's gonna. We do have some events coming up now for the remainder next month. Lee, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. On Thursday, December 3rd, we have holiday music with Marta Burton, which is going to be a lot of fun. She'll be Zooming from her home with a pianist. So it should be a great time listening to some great music. And then we start up again in January, and I'm just pulling up the dates because there's a lot going on. We start on January 28th, which will be another visual arts spark for our Commissioner's Choice exhibit. I don't think that we've announced the artist for that yet, so I'm not going to say anything. And then on February 25th, we have our own Maureen Holland, who you may remember from Vietnam Stories, who's going to be talking about her travels to Egypt. And then on March 25th, we have another visual arts for the Lone Tree photography show, Exploring the Light. So Janine will be moderating that one. And then on April 22nd, we are going to get treated again to Maureen, who is going to be talking about her travels to Morocco. And then on May 27th, we'll do something related to art as well, still sort of up in the air. And that's what we've had planned now for the spring. Stay tuned for more dates and more information on all of those programs.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you being here today.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Bye,
Yeah, thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Scene.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.